So I will be sharing my key learning takeaways from Tayshaun and Isaac's coaching session for lesson 11 of S264. Yeah. So in lesson 264, Tayshaun did the lesson about penetrating the defense by playing through balls, things like that. So the two key learning points that I took away was firstly in game one, and secondly in his practice tasks. Some are good and some are bad, and areas to improve on. Yeah. So for his game one, his setup for the game I felt was really good. It facilitated the concept of the learning objective very easily, and also given the idea of how he planned it, I thought that he designed the lesson to be very efficient, very suitable to achieve the learning outcome. Yep. So some rules that he implied for game one was that there was no backwards passes, so you couldn't pass backwards to a teammate, which would force you to move forward or move along the same line, but usually you move forward to attack the goal in a sense, because his goal is a scoring zone, so like an end zone, something like in rugby, an end zone. Yeah. And also in the end zone, in order to actually successfully score the point, you had to stop the ball. Yeah. So I felt that it was very realistic and very efficient in learning the lesson objectives, because you want to play through passes, find open space such that your teammates can run into the open space and you play a through pass to them, so that it's more efficient to progress the ball forward, because you'll be advancing the ball by making a run. Yeah. So I thought that it was a really good idea, very good concept, that you couldn't pass backwards, because it would force the participants to go forward and it will be harder to maintain possession. So because of that, then it will be much more facilitated towards the learning objective. Yeah. Also, the fact that you had to stop the ball in the end zone to score, I felt was very very similar to an actual game, where your true pass is not just a kick and run, but you usually have to kick the pass to a teammate, and not just pass to them, but they must be able to control it. Yeah. So the aspect of having to stop the ball after the white line but before the wall would add the element of maintaining possession of the ball even after the true pass. Yeah. So that can be like continuing your run after that in a normal soccer match, but in this case, in Tayshaun's lesson, he focused more on stopping the ball directly wherever you are. Yeah. So I thought that these two inclusions were very good. My key learning takeaway from this is that the organization of game one has to be well facilitated towards the learning outcome, the learning objective. Your game one especially is the foundation for how you set up your entire lesson, because it will help you facilitate your Q&A session, which would be easier for participants to identify and exaggerate the scenario, so that they can better grasp and understand what you actually are trying to teach. Yeah. So things for myself to apply would be how I set up the game, perhaps some arrangement in the playing area, certain restrictions or more rules to be implied, could be put in place. For example, I'm doing football transitions, which is transitioning from defense to attack quickly. Yeah. So along those lines, I could do a similar rule like Tayshaun to play forward passes only. So because you want to attack fast and change the pace of the game to be from having the ball in your own half defending to quickly attacking, you want to focus more on just playing the ball forward. Yeah. So that's all I have for Tayshaun's video. So in addition to that, in the practice task, as mentioned in our COP video, we noticed that Tayshaun's true ball drills were actually focused dominantly on the left hand side of the pitch. Yeah, because there was a line separation. The person passing was always on the left, so we didn't really get to pass on the right. So perhaps what he could have done instead is to even out, so that like after every attempt you switch to the other side, so that you can experience a bit of both. Yeah. So how I can include this into my own training session would be, you try to make sure that the opportunity that you get to practice is actually even. So things such as playing on either side, if there's a specific side that you have to play from, would encourage them to train and practice to be able to execute the skill from any direction. Yeah. So for myself, I do not have any drills that are specifically designed for a certain direction. It is mostly self-dictated by the players themselves, so they can just choose a direction and then they'll decide how to carry on from there. So there's not so much of a pre-set game plan like Tayshaun's true ball drill, where it started from one side specifically. Yeah. So for Isaac's coaching, the two main objectives that I took away from it would be both game one and game two, in the sense of the rules as well as the practice task arrangements. Yeah. So perhaps I'll start with the practice task first, because it's simpler to explain. His practice tasks were mostly about dribbling the ball, moving back and forth. Yeah, I thought that the arrangement, the idea behind the drill was very good. The concept of doing the crossovers as well as using a screen after that to apply the crossover is actually quite useful. However, because most of us don't know how to actually execute a successful screen, most of the time when we're playing the game too, we anyhow do it. Yeah, so perhaps what you could have done is allocate a specific, simpler task drill such that it will teach the skill of screening. Yeah. On top of that, the manpower used in terms of the participants in the practice drills, I felt was a bit excessive, because for the most part, when he was doing the drills of two people dribbling up and down, perhaps he could just do one person with one ball and all just go at the same time. So there'll be a higher engagement rate and lower waiting time. For the other drill of the one where you have to cross over the defender or with a screen whatsoever, those I felt was also a bit unnecessary, as you could remove the defender and use a cone, as the drill was of passive defender. Yeah, so that would be more there'll be more practice time for all the participants, and yeah, like lesser waiting time, high engagement levels. Yeah, so that is something you want to have in your coaching session. So for myself, how I can apply that during my coaching session would be mainly for the practice tasks. You want to ensure that at least for myself, I'll plan 75% of the class is actively participating in the drill itself. So for a class of 6, perhaps at least 4 or 5 is actively participating at a single time. So that would increase the engagement level such that the participant is attentive, know what is going on during the lesson. Yep. Secondly, the second learning point is about game 1 and game 2. I thought that his arrangement of the game was a bit difficult to identify the struggles, the main learning objective. Yeah. So as mentioned, his game 1 was that there was only a limitation of 5 passes, and that was the only rule available. However, his learning objective was more of beating the defender, moving to open space and attacking the goal. Yeah. So because of that, I felt that the rule of only 5 passes was not really applicable to the scenario, as having lesser passes does not necessarily guarantee you to attack the goal and drive into the box. Yeah. So for example, a person could not drive at all and just stay at the 3-point line and just shoot one shot. So that kind of defeats the entire purpose of the learning outcome and the purpose of having a game 1 where the individual will experience the scenario. So some ways you could do it to exaggerate it would be to include a man-to-man marking system that would encourage defenders to stay close to their attackers, and the attackers would have to beat the defenders in order to get an open shot so that nobody's blocking them. So that would exaggerate in some way to encourage the attackers to practice and see the issue of having to create open space for themselves. Yeah. So on top of that, perhaps what you could have done is to change the scoring system. Because you want participants to dribble, you do not want them to stay outside the 3-point line and just shoot a 3-pointer. So perhaps you could reduce the score from the 3-pointer line to be a 1 point, and then anything inside will still remain as a 2-point. So that would also encourage participants to dribble in more and create open space for themselves. So how it's applicable to me is to augment the rules, add extra rules, similar to Tayshaun's video. You want to change the rules such that it facilitates the exaggeration of the scenario, such that participants is able to identify and experience the issue at hand, so that they will be able to actually answer you in the Q&A session. Yeah, so that is all I have for Isaac and Tayshaun's coaching video. This is Willis signing out for lesson 11 of S264.